will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmidt, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed,
Here.
Alderwoman Tyus, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Ingracia, Alderman Conway, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderman Kennedy, Alderman French, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderwoman Cruzen, 20 present.
Quorum being present, I'll ask everyone in the chambers and the galleries to please rise for prayer. We will be led in prayer today by Reverend John Watson, Jr., who has led us in prayer many times before. But today is a little bit different here. We actually have Reverend John Watson, Sr. with us today, and the First Lady. So let's give them a round of applause.
Can we have a moment of silence for the victims of the Oklahoma tornado? Let us pray. Gracious God, Heavenly Father, we give thanks on this Memorial Day weekend for all the blessings that you've given our nation. Prosperity has reigned in our country, and our freedom as a nation has not been lost to us. Because of you graciously holding your protecting hands over us. As we remember those who have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve the freedom we enjoy every day, we ask that you hold our servicemen and women in your strong arms and cover them with your sheltering grace and presence as they stand in the gap for our continual protection. We also remembering the families of our troops, we ask your unique blessing to fill their homes, and we pray your peace, provisions, and strength will fill their lives. Those who govern our great city, give wisdom, ability, sane judgment, and moral purpose. We know, Lord, that the task is difficult, the duties are many, and the responsibility heavy. Uphold them with your might. Into your loving arms we commit our nation, our city, our communities, our families, and ourselves. Make us confident. Keep us strong with a firm trust in you. Amen.
That's a great prayer to get the day started with. Alderman from the 4th, you recognize? Did you have something for us? Alderman from the 4th, did you have something you want to talk about? Yeah, we suspend with our regular order of business, take up our courtesy resolution calendar. I move for adoption of our courtesy resolution calendar. Second by Alderman from the 20th. Alderman from the 4th.
Okay. You could. I know, you know the boss, Mary.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning. You too, Donna. I'm here to introduce a family that I've known since 1956. I was born in 48, so I'll tell you how old I am and how long I've been knowing this family, the Watson family. The Watson family is a great spiritual family that helped keep me in line, to keep me from coming down to the board and doing things that I would really like to do, but I won't because of my Christian beliefs. So this Watson family, they're having a reunion. Elder John Watson lives next door. This is my neighbor, actually. He's my neighbor. And we appreciate Brother John Watson Jr. coming down to pray for us all the time. And they're having a reunion of this great family in the city of St. Louis, and I'd like for them to come up, the entire Watson family.
These are ones that came.
Oh, they are.
This is the ones now.
Rodney Krim, you're not in this family? Oh, okay. Miss Booker, you don't read these anymore, do you? Would you do me a favor? Could you read this for me today? Could I draft for you to read this? I know you're going to get me afterwards, but thank you. Several Bella Watson, right here.
Whereas John and Addie Watson married in St. Louis in 1953, to this union was born 10 children, 5 boys and 5 girls. And whereas John and Addie Watson in 1964 settled their family at 4407 Garfield, where their children attended St. Louis Public Schools, and the family still resides. And whereas John and Addie Watson and family have contributed to the St. Louis community financially and spiritually, they have had a positive influence on their community for over 60 years. And whereas John and Addie Watson and family have been blessed to have pastors, preachers, community leaders, teachers, servicemen, civil service workers, technicians, engineers, and government workers that are all very active in making contributions to their communities. And whereas John and Addie Watson and family have 40 grandchildren and 30 great-grandchildren, following in the legacy of making God the priority and leaving a positive impact on their community. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of St. Louis that we pause in our deliberations to congratulate John and Addie Watson and the entire Watson family in celebration of their contributions to the City of St. Louis. And we wish them continued peace, good health, and happiness. We further direct the clerk of this board to spread a copy of this resolution across the minutes of these proceedings and to prepare a commemorative copy to the end that it may be presented to our honoree at a time and place deemed appropriate by the sponsor. Introduced on the 23rd day of May 2013 by Honorable Samuel Moore, Alderman 4th Ward. Honorable Louis E. Reed, President of St. Louis Board of Aldermen.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Booker. Brother John Watson and Sister Addie Watson, I present to you this resolution, and the President of the Board will tell you the significance of this resolution, and we appreciate you in the City of St. Louis. Thank you so much. You can have a few words, but we don't want you to preach.
Certainly, I thank you for this outstanding honor and recognition. Thankful for Alderman Moore, Mr. Reed, and all of the, aldermen that have one time or the other visited the Maple Temple Church, where I have the privilege of serving as the pastor and spiritual leader. I want to thank you for, this distinguished honor. Certainly it would be and should be remembered, that you have so, recognized my family, my wife, and I. We are, has been said, St. Louis, we've been born and the raise here in our labor, not only in the workforce, St. Louis public school systems, and other jobs. We just thank God for you. May God bless this tremendous board and its undertaking, taking on the business of this city and the welfare of this city. May God continually give you the guidance, amen, that you need. God bless you. Thank you again, my darling and my sirs.
Hold on. We want to take a picture.
Reverend Watson and First Lady, I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to go to Maple Temple and hear the First Lady sing, but she is a phenomenal, just phenomenal at the mic. She even had Harry Kennedy standing up in church ready to shout. It was something to behold. But Reverend and First Lady, this resolution is the highest honor this board has to give, and what it does is that it cements in time some of your many contributions and what your family means to the city of St. Louis up until this point. So 100, 200 years from now, when they research the records of the city of St. Louis, they'll find the Watson family amongst those records and know that you passed this way and you contributed so significantly that we pause today in our deliberations to congratulate you and thank you and recognize your family. So thanks again for all that your family has done for the city of St. Louis. Let's give them one more round of applause. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. With that, we return to our regular order of business. Introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 20th.
Mr. President, members of the board, I know that Mr. Watson already mentioned this, but of course, the reason why we're here today is because Monday we will be celebrating what was once known as Decoration Day and now known as Memorial Day. I wondered if at some point during the proceedings we might have a moment of silence as well for all of those who have died in our various wars. Obviously today, medical technology is so great. We have a lot of people who are the walking wounded with PTSD and they've lost limbs and so forth. So we're also remembering them as well because otherwise they might have died and been remembered on Memorial Day, but we should remember all of them.
All right, I'm good with it. Would everybody rise at the request of the aldermen from the 20th Ward to recognize all of those who have passed away and have been injured in wars to protect our rights and our freedoms. We also want to have a moment of silence for Darvin Wallace, the brother of Steve Chalmers, who passed away also at the same time. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have a couple of introductions. The first one is a resident, 16th Ward resident that everyone mistakenly thought was my son this morning, and that's Cormac Cashner over here with Alderman Villa. He's a 16th Ward resident. I'd like to have him as my special guest today. Then I actually have my son with me, Connor Behringer, who graduates Sunday from St. Louis University High School. He's here for two reasons. He's here as my special guest as my son, but also because if you all were very nice enough to go out in the hallway, we have a lemonade stand for epilepsy. And we're doing that because it brings awareness. And my son Connor suffered from seizures for 5 years. And I'm very happy to help whenever I can with all the nonprofits. So I'm very glad to have my guests. And I am being challenged by Senator Schmidt, who is also doing the lemonade stand. So just so you all know, I have a challenger. I have a challenger. Senator Schmidt and I are going to see who can raise the most money for epilepsy. Thank you.
Everybody hear that? Let's buy some lemonade today and welcome Connor. Was Connor the wrestler? I think he was on the...
This is the wrestler.
That was the wrestler. So I saw you wrestler when you were a little bitty guy. Yeah, you were a really good wrestler, by the way. You should have stuck with it. Very good wrestler. Alderman from the 14th.
Good morning, President Reed and esteemed colleagues. I'd like to have for my guest today Harry Kennedy, committeeman of the 14th Ward and former senator of the great state of Missouri, Anthony Lancia from the AGC, Celeste Reuter from the Realtors Association, and Leroy Grant of AT&T. I'd like to welcome them and wish them a very happy and pleasant Memorial Day. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 9th. You're looking at the Alderman from the 23rd. We'll get to him. You go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have for my honored guest today, Ronnie Auer, who's here somewhere.
All right. Alderman from the 23rd.
Once again, as it gets to me, half mine are gone, but left on my list is Al from the firefighters as my special guest.
All right. Alderman from 26.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to have as my special guest today, former Comptroller Vervis Jones. Thank you.
Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Any further introductions? Alderman from the 10th, would like to wrap us up.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, as we're gathered here in the prelude to Memorial Day weekend, which the Alderman from the 20th pointed out, before we have all our fun and games, this is not a weekend of barbecue in Indianapolis 500. It is also a weekend of remembering all those who have gone before us. But today is a special day. It is on this day in 1785 that Ben Franklin invented the bifocals, which I am eternally grateful to him for, as I'm sure most of you of my age are also. Thank Ben Franklin so we can all read today.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for approval of the May 10th minutes.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes. I have from His Honor the Mayor the following correspondence. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Residence Inn Downtown St. Louis Community Improvement District. The appointment of Michael Mullinex, who resides at 32 Fair Oaks and whose term will expire on March the 8th, 2017. The appointment of Gregory Mullinex, who resides at 1651 Bennett and whose term will expire on March the 8th, 2017. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Residence Inn Downtown St. Louis Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for the approval of the appointments to the Residence Inn St. Louis Community Improvement
Moved by
District.
the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Soulard Special Business District. The appointment of Kathy Weldon, who resides at 403 Fairwood Lane. The appointment of Mary Bander, who resides at 1840 South 8th Street, whose term will expire on December the 31st, 2015. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the Soulard Special Business District.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for the approval of the mayor's appointments.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Colson Martin Luther King Grand Community Improvement District. The appointment of Christine Madeline, who resides at 1214 Los Alos, and whose term will expire on March the 27th, 2017. A reappointment of James Coleman, who resides at 7 Dromara Road, and whose term will expire on March the 27th, 2015. The reappointment of Stephen Schott, who resides at 67 Briar Cliff, and whose term will expire on March the 27th, 2015, the reappointment of Terry Barnes, who resides at 103 High Grove Lane, and whose term will expire on March the 27th, 2017, the reappointment of Scott Haley, who resides at 14185 Cross Trails Drive, and whose term will expire on March the 27th, 2017. I respectfully request your approval of these appointments. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderwoman from the 19th. Alderwoman from the 19th. You recognize on the mayor's appointment to Cozen's MLK Grand Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for approval.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 19th, seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That's better.
Thank you.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the St. Louis Public Library Board of Directors. The appointment of Zachary Boyers, who resides at 915 Olive, and whose term will expire on June the 1st, 2016. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Francis G. Slay, Mayor, City of St. Louis.
Alderman from the 7th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the St. Louis Public Board of Directors.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for approval of Zachary Boyd to board.
The Library Board of
To the
Directors.
library board, yes.
It's a
Thank
tongue
you.
twister. Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extended report of city officials.
We dispense with items 7 through 10, first reading board bills.
Board Bill 71, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, and ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the issuance and sale of one or more series of water revenue bonds, Series 2013, in aggregate principal amount not to exceed $10 million in order to pay and reimburse the City of St. Louis for costs associated with the extension, improvement, purchase, acquisition, construction, enlargement of the city's waterworks systems. Board Bill Number 72, sponsored by Alderman Ortman, an ordinance establishing a three-way stop site at the intersection of Sidney and Lemp by regulating all east-west traffic traveling on Sidney Street approaching such intersection and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 73, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance establishing a two-way stop site at the intersection of Eichelberger and Alfred by regulating all east-west traffic traveling on Eichelberger approaching such intersection and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 74, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance establishing a three-way stop site at the intersection of Walsh and Newport by regulating all east-west traffic traveling on Walsh approaching such intersection and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 75, sponsored by Alderman Ortman, an ordinance submitting to the qualified voters of the city a proposed amendment to the charter relating to fines, providing for an election to be held therefore, and the manner of voting thereat, and containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our first reading.
Reference to committee.
To the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bill 71, to the Legislation Committee, Board Bill 75, and to the Streets Committee, Board Bills 72, 73, and 74. That's the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading.
The following board bill was reported out of the Housing Committee, Board Bill Number 5, sponsored by Alderman Ogilvy, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property on the district map from A, single family, and J, industrial, to the H, area commercial districts for properties on Garner, Manchester, and Waldmer, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill Number 16, sponsored by Alderman Ortman, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 2301 Arsenal containing a severability clause. Board Bill 24, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for 1516 through 30 North Jefferson containing a severability clause. Board Bill 31, sponsored by Alderman Williamson, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 5162, 5164, and 5166 through 68 Dr. Martin Luther King Drive. Board Bill 32, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from B, two-family dwelling district, and the J, industrial district, to the J, industrial district only for properties on Kentucky Avenue and Papin Street, and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 35, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the to change the zoning of property from F Neighborhood Commercial District to the B Two-Family Dwelling District in City Block 3389 for property on College containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 48, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis and Alderman Bosley, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for Shepherd Apartments redevelopment area and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 49, sponsored by Alderwoman Flowers, an ordinance approving a blighting study and a redevelopment plan for College Hill Nazareth Homes redevelopment area and containing a severability clause. Board Bill 57, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, an ordinance repealing ordinance 69068, affirming adoption of a redevelopment plan, redevelopment area, redevelopment project, authorizing the execution of a redevelopment agreement between the city and Lancaster Ventures containing a severability clause. Board Bill 63, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the issuance and delivery of not to exceed $2,850,000 plus issuance cost principal amount of tax increment revenue notes for Northeast Hampton Berthold redevelopment project and containing a severability clause. The following board bills were reported out of the Streets Committee. Board Bill 64, sponsored by Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance establishing a four-way stop site at the intersection of Ivanhoe and Hancock containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 67, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service to conditionally vacate travel on a portion of Malincrot Street in City Blocks 1743 and 1748. That's the extent of our second reading.
We dispense with line items 14 and 15, board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 34, sponsored by Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Vollmer, Schmidt, and Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance authorizing and directing the mayor and the comptroller to execute and deliver an intergovernmental cooperation agreement by and among the city, county, Missouri, and the Economic Council of St. Louis County and St. Louis Development Corporation concerning the combination of existing SLCEC and SLDC business development, business finance, and entrepreneurial support services containing a severability clause.
Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Our treasurer's just walked in, Tashara Jones, and I'd love for her to be my honor guest.
Okay. Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the perfection of board bill number 34.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for perfection of Board Bill 34.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 15th. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a roll call vote. The Board Bill 34 merges the County Economic Development Council with the section of the city's SLDC Business Development Retention and Attraction section. The agreement will last 10 years. It could be renewed. It could be changed prior to that time. If things don't work out by the same process that we're approving this and the county's approving it, we could sever the relationship. There's no money that would come out of general revenue for our portion, the city's portion, to fund the partnership. 30 staff members would go from the County Economic Development Council, 10 from the city. The costs that are now incurred by SLDC, those funds would be transferred to the partnership to cover the cost of the city's portion. It'd be about 1/4. The county's payments would be about 75% of the total cost. The bill does not limit the county or the city council or the Board of Aldermen, the comptroller, president of the Board of Aldermen, the mayor in any way. We can do tax abatement, we do TIFs, we do TDDs, CIDs, nothing changes there. The services that would come to our wards, for instance, from the business management folks, the business district guys, those would continue unabated. The LRA, the Port Authority, all of that would continue just as it is now. There'd be no change. I think there would be a, I think there would be certainly be a synergy when you bring 30 professionals, development professionals from the county, 10 from the city. You're going to create a much stronger, more energetic capacity when you talk about business development. One of the big advantages I see in it is it's going to minimize, not eliminate, but minimize what I call tax subsidy shopping. Let's just take a fictitious company that they've been in the city, their lease is up, they've got 500 employees, and they say, our lease is up in 2014, we're thinking about, moving. What can you do for us? And what happens is they'll come to the city and we'll offer a package. And then they go to the county and they offer a package. And then they'll come back to the city. That's going to be minimized. They're going to be going to one entity, the partnership. The partnership's going to ask them what are their real needs. Do they need to be next to a highway, for instance, or do they want to be in a more, let's say, higher place with high activity like downtown St. Louis? Once they get all the factors, they'll help the business make a decision. But we are not going to be paying, I think we're going to cut the subsidies that we pay. I think the county's going to cut the subsidies that they pay. It's not going to eliminate them, but as I said, it's going to minimize them. Will there be some competition between the city and the county? Yeah, there will. But again, it's going to be minimized. I think this is a first step of a consolidation of economic development. I think there are going to be other entities that are going to be join this partnership. I think it's not going to happen overnight, but this entity, this partnership is going to be the biggest fish in this relatively small pond, and there's going to be others that are going to want to join in. It's not going to happen overnight. It might take, I hope to be offering similar legislation 5, 10, 15 years from now to include other geographic entities in the metro area. But it's going to happen. It's going to happen because it makes sense. One alderman said, what's my ward going to get out of it? First of all, I don't think our wards are going to lose anything. I don't think the taxpayers are going to lose anything. I think we're going to gain. If we gain businesses, that equals jobs. Jobs equals taxes, and taxes equal city services. And that's going to help every ward in this city. It's going to help all our residents. What we've seen in the last 20, 30, 40 years is an eroding tax base. Now the county's experiencing some of the same problems. Is continuing to compete the way we have the answer? I don't think so. I think with more cooperation, we're going to both benefit, both the city and the county. I ask for your support. I thank the co-sponsors who are, who have came to me and agreed to do so, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 1st.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. If the sponsor would yield.
Alderman from the 13th, will you yield for questioning to the Alderwoman from the 1st?
Yes.
Alderwoman, please proceed.
Thank you. I agree with you about the shopping around for tax subsidies. I'm one of 2 people that voted against the debacle that we did with the Rams back then and asked a lot of questions, was a new alderperson, and now we are addressing the very issues that I brought up all those years ago. I never understood why it made sense, even within wards, if the 20 20th or now the 1st Ward had something, for me to try to get it from the 13th Ward, how that helped the city. I always thought that that was ridiculous. You know, if I take something from your ward, it does not enrich mine, as we are a full city. I do, however, have some questions. You talk about eliminating tax subsidy shopping, and we don't want anyone to have any perception of competition between the city and the county for jobs and projects. So by them working together, if this will, they will make a decision, and then the agreement will be, so if we find where you need, then you can't try to go around us. If we find someplace in the county that this is the site that you need, then the city is not going to try to do anything to undercut that. Then we're going to be in agreement that that's where this business would go if we had a fictional business that found someplace in the county. So that's the agreement. So we wouldn't try to go and compete with them under this agreement. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I said, I think there's still going to be some competition. I think there's going to be some businesses are obviously more, the city would be their preferable spot. Other businesses, the county would. And I think there's going to be some that are up in the air. And I think there's going to be, I don't think there's going to be unanimity on every single potential business issue.
Well, I'm reading here on page, what is this? Page 2, line 19. It says, in order to eliminate any perception of competition between the city and county for jobs and projects. So I guess that the board bill says something different than what you are saying then. So well, that's not quite true?
Yeah. I can't, I believe what I said.
Okay.
I don't care what the board bill says in the preamble. I think there's going to be, you know, in basketball they have jump balls, all right? I think there's going to be jump balls in this where both are going to, you know, we're both going to have proposals, at least in the initial run through.
Okay.
I didn't say we're going to eliminate tax subsidies. I didn't say that we're going to eliminate tax shopping. I said I think it's going to minimize it.
And you didn't write this board bill, so I'm just, you know, because what we put in writing ultimately will come back to bite us, okay? And so here, when we start saying we're going to eliminate any perception, I'm trying to understand that. I think you're much more correct than this board bill is, okay? I think what you're saying is correct. And even to the point of when we put, I mean, I guess I remember we used to have Bi-State before it was Metro, and it started out as the St. Louis Bus Company. MSD started out, belongs to the St. Louis City. Airport, I remember when we put that commission together where we put all the extra people on it. So I'm looking at this as being another step about just merging the city and the county and not really doing what the board bill says. And the other question I have about this whole elimination of competition, so if we eliminate it, just to say for instance it's right, and we eliminate it between the county and we eliminate it between the city, then how do we do that for St. Charles County or Illinois or whatever? I know you're saying we're looking to the future, but I don't see that. First, I don't believe it's going to stop it even between the city and the county, but I most certainly, if I'm a county, if I'm a business and I know that I can go and shop, I'm going to shop wherever I can. The reason why the county is experiencing the same thing as the city, they didn't listen to us when we were going through the problems. St. Charles, St. Peter's is going to do the same things. They will not care about what we are talking about. They are going to be grabbing, to me, whatever they can get and offering the best deals. And until this is a much more regional thing, I don't see this working, okay? I just don't, I see this as a first step, but not really working, and I really have concerns about merging the city and the county. And my other question is, how do you believe...
Your other question?
Yes. I did have a question earlier about
good.
it, okay?
I'm glad you had a question.
Okay, thank you. How is it that competition is hurting us?
How is the competition hurting us?
Yes, how do you... Right, not what this board bill said. What do you believe is the reason that how competition is hurting us? Because you say you don't care what this board bill says.
I do care what the board bill says.
But I'm just repeating what you said.
No, you're not repeating what I said.
You did. I mean, if you look back at this tape, you said, I don't care what this board bill said.
What's your question?
I said, how does competition hurt the city and the county?
Well, number one, we pay higher subsidies than we have to if we're competing in both the city and the county. To respond to your point about other counties, Jefferson County, St. Charles County, East Side, not being included, we have to deal with reality. We have to deal with what's available now. As I mentioned, I think this is, we're going to have, with the city and the county, we're going to have over 1.5 million residents that are going to be covered by the partnership out of the regional. So we're going to have a big chunk of and not only a big chunk of this metro area, but the main drivers of economic development, and that is the city and St. Louis County.
Okay.
St. Charles and Jefferson County are way behind in those, in that area.
Okay.
I don't see Stiefel moving to Jefferson, Arnold,
I hear what you're saying. It's a lot of things that I've seen in the past years that I wouldn't have seen. I've seen people move that 30 years ago. When I hear about what's now Macy's that used to be famous, leaving the city of St. Louis, that makes me so sad. I lived in South St. Louis for a number of years before I lived in North St. Louis. So for many, many years, I shopped at the famous bar. I still have stuff in my house that I got at the famous bar at Southtown, okay? And even when I moved north, I went to South St. Louis for about 6 or 7 years because I was so much more familiar with shopping in South St. Louis. So when I hear what's now Macy's, but famous, moving out the city of St. Louis, that makes me very, very sad because I never could have.
Did you have a question on Board Bill 34?
Okay, but yes, I do. Let's go to page 4, line 21, 22. It is in the best interest of the city to combine certain of its resources, coordinate certain of its legislative powers. Why would we be giving away legislative powers?
So what line are you, where are we at here? I'm on page 4.
Page 4, line 21 and 22. It is in the best interest of the city to combine certain of its resources, coordinate certain of its legislative powers. I don't understand why coordinating my legislative powers that I got elected to is in the best interest of the city.
Are you on the board bill? I mean, I don't have, my board bill is not, I don't have any.
Page 4 of 7, line 21, 22. I'm specifically at the board bill. Am I in the, do I have the right board bill? Is this it? Is this page 4, 21, 22?
Okay, thank you. And join together with the parties to provide, I think all that's saying is that we're merging what I've just described, isn't it? I don't see where it's giving up any legislative powers.
Okay, I'm so sorry. As a lawyer, what I have been taught is that what's in a board bill or what's in legislation is what you ultimately have to deal with. And so it says right here, coordinating certain of its legislative powers. And I want to know what legislative powers we are coordinating and what we are going to be giving up in this board bill. Because I'm not for giving up any legislative powers.
We're not giving up any legislative powers.
Well, what legislative powers are we coordinating?
As I stated earlier, when we do tax abatement, when we talk about TIFs, there's no change whatsoever in the way we do business now. We'd have to have charter changes to do what you're suggesting, and this has nothing to do with the charter.
I'm not suggesting anything except for I'm reading what's in the legislation. Okay, we will move on to page 5, lines 19, 20, 21. The intergovernmental cooperation agreement shall be in substantially the form attached, with such changes therein as shall be approved by said mayor and comptroller as may be consistent with the intent of this ordinance and necessary and appropriate in order to carry out the matters herein involved. So what that basically is saying to me is that they have authority to change this, but that's consistent with this
Who has
intent
the
of
authority to change it?
the
You said
mayor
they.
and the comptroller, and
No.
along with the county?
No, no. Where do you see that at? No, that's not in there.
Okay, let me read it again. The intergovernmental cooperation agreement shall be in substantially the form attached with such changes therein as shall be approved by said mayor and comptroller, is exactly what it says. As may be consistent with the intent of this ordinance. We're giving them the power to change this ordinance, and then who is the person that will decide if this is in the intent of the ordinance? That's much too vague and gives away too much power.
Yeah, that's what I thought. This is boilerplate language, okay? It's in just about every bill that we have. It's in TIFs. If you want to review all of those, it's the same type of boilerplate language we have there.
Mr. Wessels, Alderman Wessels, I'm not trying to start anything with you. I just think that this is bad legislation. I've read over it. I think that boilerplate language is often bad, is specific and vague on purpose, because we have the little people out there that's sending you notes who write this stuff up, and then when we have to enforce this stuff, it's a mess, and we've had to send board bills back. We've passed board bills. I was here when we passed board bills and legislation, and then we have to come back and repass them because they're not written very well. Now, either it's done on purpose or they accidentally. But when you start saying that you're going to give the mayor and the comptroller the power to change things, then I want to know specifically what they're going to be able to change, and will it have to come back before this board? Let's see here. Next page, page 6. Oh, that's just, I'm sorry, that's the same thing. Section 5 says again that they can, consistent with this ordinance, that they can carry out things and change them. And I had a problem with that.
Wait a minute. It doesn't say they can, every bill, every TIF bill, this is, again, this is boilerplate language. Every TIF bill, matter of fact, there's a bill that, if you look at Board Bill 71, Section 8, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, it's got the same language in it.
And
okay?
I hear what you're saying. It's not, but my problem with it is not, and I vote against TIF all the time. In fact, Snooks never got a TIF in my ward. You know, I went to war with a former mayor about a TIF because it was not done properly, and I actually got the TIF board to vote no. Nobody ever knows that. So that doesn't make me okay, okay? Just because something is in other language is in a board bill, that may need to be changed. Right now, we're specifically talking and speaking to Board Bill 34.
It shouldn't be changed, and the reason it shouldn't be changed is specifically there are instances where the mayor and the comptroller need to sign off on documents after we pass bills. I'll give you an example. When we pass this agreement, if they want to get it registered, they're going to have to get a notary, they're going to have to sign it, and they're going to have to take it to the registrar's office. And that's all this type of clause does. It's standard and it's necessary for the administration of this type of legislation, and not just this type. As I said, TIFs and many other bills that we pass, it's included. If you didn't have it in here, you'd have bottlenecks, you'd have big messes, and you'd have to come back and amend bills just to allow routine signatures to be made to transact regular city business.
I would beg to differ and say that they can be very specific in what kind of things that they might be able to have it. And we can be very specific in putting in the legislation what they can change and how they should be able to change it. It's not a big deal. That's what we pay all those lawyers that we have in the city councilor's office and over even at SLDC. So if it's vague, it's either incompetence or done on purpose so that it allows people to do things that they should not be able to do. My last question is that page 6, term of agreement number 8 says that the agreement shall be come effective upon its execution by all parties and shall continue for a term of 10 years from the effective date. Thereafter, the parties may agree to extend the term of this agreement for additional 10-year terms. So every 10 years, I want to know who are the parties that can extend this agreement, and why don't we have a limitation on, because additional 10 years means they can keep doing it ad infinitum. Who are the parties that would be able to extend this term?
Board of Aldermen, County Council, the directors of SLDC, directors of the, on the county level.
Okay,
the mayor and the county executive too, of course.
So it is your understanding that it would have to come back here?
Yes.
For,
Absolutely.
okay, thank you.
All right, anything further?
Mr. President, members of the board, I rise in opposition to this legislation. It may or may not be good legislation. At this point, the sponsor itself talks about that this is just standard language. We have language in here that is very vague. It shouldn't be standard. If it is, then we're doing sloppy legislation and we need to do better. The whole thing about eliminating competition, any perception of competition, the sponsor itself told us that it would not do that. Okay, so, and it's not going to do that. I think this legislation was rushed. I don't know how long it stayed in committee, but obviously people didn't ask the proper questions. When we talk about combining and coordinating certain of its legislative powers, I'm always going to be opposed to things that get rid of legislative powers. When we had the vote about reducing the Board of Aldermen, the first ward resoundingly defeated it. So I stand up for their voice to say they were not for that, and I'm not for even outsourcing legislative powers, and many times board bills have been found to be illegal when the legislative body has illegally given over their powers that they weren't allowed to do. So I think this needs to be gone over much more carefully, and I'd like to make a motion to send this board bill back to committee.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd. Any discussion? Alderman from the 14th, you have a discussion on the motion?
I do. However, I was prepared to rise in support of the bill, but I think that this would be a mistake. It shows that we are still parochial, stuck in our small-town ways, and that we need to move forward with joining forces. Together, we're stronger. Joining forces with the resources that St. Louis County offers will not limit our power. It will increase our power. Ultimately, businesses do not move here because they choose one place or another. It's about the dollars and cents. Businesses look at where the most profitable place, the best place to meet their needs. We're limiting the businesses' choices. If we're looking at going nationally, internationally, it's one-stop shopping is what this will bring about for those businesses coming into the region. And if we're going to hold on to our colloquialism and our parochialism and, I guess, small-town ways, we're going to be passed over by many of those businesses that want to come. They want to see what the region has to offer. Not, come down to City Hall, then go out to the county, then go to Jefferson, then go to St. Charles. They want to see what the region has to offer, and they're going to make their judgment on what suits them best and the dollars and cents involved. Sending this back to committee serves no one. Thank you.
All right. Alderwoman from the 15th.
The previous question.
There's a motion. We're already debating the current motion that's before us.
I am opposed to sending this back to committee. We held 2 hearings on this issue, and really, the real issue is capacity. This is our opportunity to build the capacity in business retention and expanding of jobs. It opens the door for Slate to build relationships with corporate America regionally, and it would improve our ability in workforce development.
All right. Alderman from the 3rd, you recognize.
Mr. President and members of the board, let me just tell you, information is one of the best items that one can have in making a decision. It's apparent that there is so much indecisiveness and information and answers that are not here today, that it would be better if we put this thing back in the committee so that we could talk about it. This is a very dangerous bill. What we're talking about in this bill here is going to negatively affect the city. Here, the city is beginning to progress, and now we're talking about combining the city with the county. This is just one step. Years ago, the county didn't want nothing to do with us. But now that the city is on its way back, there is a move afoot, and this is one of the things that you're going to do, talking about the money that the city. Now, if they can do so great with the money that they got, years ago they wanted no part of us. But now, because of the number of people on welfare, the number of people on food stamps, the people beneath the median income is what is part of the formula that determines how much money a community or a city is going to get. And it's abundantly clear that the majority of those items that fit within that formula are still down here in the city of St. Louis. So now they want to combine it so they can get the money that we got. It was almost like the block grants. When the block grants first came, all of that money went to the central corridor out there. That's why it looks the way it looks. And then the rest of it went down in South St. Louis. North St. Louis looks like the aftermath of World War II, and that was by design because they didn't get the money. And what we need to do, because this is tax dollars on all of us, if someone makes more money than I got, and I make, and they pay twice as much as I pay, but I have paid every dime of my 20% of their taxes, and they paid every dime of their 20%. We have given the same of what it is we have. So it does not make sense to take something like this here and not go through it, not understand it, not take it apart, and not see what it's going to mean to all of this city. Now we're talking about farming in alliance with the county. The county wanted nothing to do with us for so many years. We will not hurt ourselves, and we will not hurt the constituents and the people that we represent by sending this thing back to the committee, and let's look at it. It may come back like this. It may be the best thing, but right now it's indecisive. I don't know. I wouldn't be prepared to vote for it, and I would hope none of you would be prepared to vote for something that's not clear. So I support sending it back to the committee so that we can really read this thing and understand it, and all of the questions that we have put on the table and answered.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me first say that the idea of the city...
Have some order.
Thank you. The idea of the city and the county cooperating is a good idea. The idea of making the pie larger instead of just splitting the pie up in different sections is a good idea. Many of us down here support that concept. But I rise in support of this motion to send it back to committee because I don't think we've done our proper due diligence down here in the process of legislation. For those of you who are not on the committee and were not at some of those hearings, we made several information requests, and we did not get those. We made specific requests about how is this actually going to work, and we did not get that. We asked, where is the actual plan on paper? Can you show us how this process is going to work once this legislation passes? We did not get that. In fact, what you should also know is that when it passed out of committee, there was one alderman who wasn't there, so we were short. So it passed with one vote, and I believe that if that alderman was there, it would not have passed because we had made several information requests that were important to him and didn't get it. And so, I don't know if the bill sponsor would yield to a question.
Alderman from the 13th, will you yield for questioning to the alderman from the 21st?
Thinking about it?
Yes.
Alderman from the 21st, please proceed.
Appreciate it. One of the things we requested was the agreement that would go into effect between St. Louis City and St. Louis County on this, how actually this would operate. I think it's referred to as a management agreement. Have you seen the management agreement?
Yes.
Have you read it?
Yes.
Why was it not made available to the committee?
I don't know. I just read it recently. The management agreement, though, will be, it's not like it's going to just get approved magically. It will come back to the SLDC Board of Directors.
But not this board.
Which I'm on, as well as Alderman Kennedy.
Okay.
So it's not, it's nothing nefarious.
And with
management
no
agreement is pretty specific.
Sure, but and with no disrespect, I mean, in your opinion, there's nothing nefarious in it. But throughout this whole process with regard to this bill, we keep being told by different people just to take their word for it. In fact, when I questioned SLDC leadership in the committee hearing, I even said that it sounds like what we're being told is, in lieu of anything on paper and any actual agreement that we can look at and study, they're telling us, don't worry, take our word for it, it's going to be awesome. And then he came back and said, yes, take our word for it, Alderman, it will be awesome. And that's not how we're supposed to legislate down here, I don't think. So if this thing was to go back to committee, would you as chairman have any objections to other committee members and other aldermen actually seeing the management agreement before we would have passed this thing? Because it seems like, especially with the addition of this language, very thoughtfully pointed out by my colleague from the first ward, it seems like this body is giving up a lot of its authority later and passing it off to the executive branch and the comptroller. And I don't believe even in the county legislation that that's in there. I don't think the county council gives up their authority to come back and make changes as we are in this legislation.
I don't like to repeat myself, but apparently you didn't hear me the first time. The language you're speaking of is routine language. It's in our TIFs. It's in Board Bill 71, Section 8, which Alderman Kennedy is sponsoring. If you'd read the bills, you'd know this is something, a part of those documents that is routine, it's boilerplate, and the reason it's in there is because there are documents that have to be signed, sealed, and delivered after we get done with a board bill.
No, so I heard you say that before, that this is boilerplate language for TIFs, but this is not a TIF bill.
It's boilerplate for many bills that we pass.
This goes a lot further than an average TIF bill. This has far-reaching implications.
I disagree completely. I think this is less so. I mean, financially, we're talking about $1 million a year. We're talking about moving 10 employees from SLDC to the merging them with 30 employees from the county. I think there's some great advantages to that. But when you talk about some of the TIF bills that we've done and some of the jobs that have been produced there, I mean, there's some pretty heavy lifting in some of those.
Okay, so two things. One, I think this has a bigger effect than an average TIF bill. This changes how, even supporters will argue, this changes how development is done in St. Louis for many years to come. But two, if you talk about dollars and cents, let's talk about that. Because from what I understand from someone who actually did get to read the management agreement, and even being a member of the committee, me and my colleagues did not, but this person did get to read it. He says that in that management agreement, it also calls for 50% of all the fees from SLDC to go towards this new entity created. Is that correct?
No.
That is not correct?
No.
So how is the new entity funded?
The entity is funded by directly from revenues that are generated at SLDC. SLDC generates revenues from block grant, they generate fees from TIFs, they generate rent from, rent from garages that they own, generate money from lease payments on the riverfront. Now, what you're speaking of, I'm familiar with what you're speaking of, but it was characterized to you inaccurately. The way it would work is that there would be the first $500,000 in specific business-type fees that all go, no matter where they're, no matter if the partnership would initiate them or whether the SODC would initiate them. The first $500,000 annually goes to the, stays at SODC. Thereafter, fees that are generated initially by SODC stay with SODC, and half of the fees that would be generated by, let's say, by the business section of the partnership would go to the partnership. There would be relatively little money going from fees to the partnership.
It would be beneficial to be able to actually see that language, especially before we vote on it. But yeah, thank you for answering my question.
I'm sure we can get that to you before we vote on it. I plan to hold this bill, after we perfect it today, I plan to hold it next Friday and then vote on it the following Friday.
But once it's perfected, though, there's not much we can change.
Sure there is. By our rules, you can always go back, you can ask for a motion to reconsider, and you can change it.
Okay. Thank you for that. I still have a little bit to say. So, even with that acknowledging that the bill is imperfect and that we may have to come back and do a special motion to change it, to me suggests that it has not been thought out thoroughly, it has not been given due diligence. There are a lot of questions still remaining and implications on this bill. So I urge our colleagues to support the motion to send it back to committee so it can be thoroughly reviewed. What I understand is that St. Louis County, in their version, has not given up the power we're giving up, and they haven't even passed the bill yet. So why there's a rush on our end to do that, I don't know. But I do get concerned when agencies don't want to give us anything written down. When they deny committee members the right to review agreements and then put things in the bill that are just called boilerplate that allow the other branch of government to just come back at any time and make future changes without coming to this board, I think it's a dangerous thing. We have a responsibility as a legislative branch to do our jobs, and we shouldn't give that away to another branch. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 22nd keeps getting up and down, up and down. You want to? Okay. Alderman from the 20th, yes.
President, members of the board, my first question has been answered with regard to whether or not this should be sent back to committee, and that is the sponsor has said that there's the ability to get this management agreement, so we have an opportunity to look at that before we would make any further votes on this. I think that's an important aspect because this does refer in the cooperative agreement that there'll be a management agreement, and surely we would want to try to take a look at that. I understand that there's sort of a chicken and egg thing here because SLDC board can make changes in that and so forth. But getting that to the light of day is an important thing. I also agree with much of what our colleague from the First Ward said, and that is that it's important, obviously, for us to look at what this is in writing. I'm not sure that I come to the same conclusion that it ought to go to committee because of that. However, let me address some of those if I can. On page 4, line 22, on the coordination of certain of its legislative powers, I would certainly be extremely concerned if we were saying that we were somehow delegating or doing something else with the legislative powers. What it seems to be that we're talking about is that St. Louis County and we are going to have to be doing certain things in coordination. There's also coordination on the intergovernmental agreement. So it sounds like what we're doing is a coordination, and that seems to be what the wording is there. But obviously we should take a look at those kind of things, which it appears that we have. On page 5, there was the issue of Section 3, and I have these concerns as well when we have a lot of this legislation, because we do give powers to our comptroller and our mayor with regard to changing of things. However, we do say that it's going to be substantially in this form. I think obviously there could be some sort of lawsuit if they start to willy-nilly change the will of the people as represented by this body. But what I analogize it to is many times there's closings that corporation boards of directors and so forth approve. And what happens is when you get to that closing, inevitably at every sort of closing on any sort of deal, there's going to be slight changes that have to be made, and there may be even slight changes in the wording. And if that authority hasn't been given to those people who have the authority to sign off on it, it means that the deal has to start over again, it has to come back. They have to get their board of directors to approve a different authorization of what's going on. So I think that's why they do that. I understand why, when there's a lack of trust, obviously, those are the kind of things that do come into play. And then on the intergovernmental cooperative agreement itself, on page 6, in terms of the term of the agreement, I think that the sponsor responded to that in terms of the continuation every 10 years. It would have to come back to all of the bodies, and of course that's another effort in cooperation that I think was reflected earlier. Obviously there are concerns anytime we have these major changes. This is a huge leap. We've never done this, as far as I know, in the entire history of the city or the county. We broke off from the county. We've had small steps with regard to Metro and MSD and East-West Gateway and other efforts. We should be looking at this. It looks like we have at the committee level. I'm not on that committee. I'd like to continue to have an opportunity, obviously, here to take a look at this. That's what we're doing today. And so I would urge us to continue looking at it here on the floor of the Board of Aldermen. I think it has been looked at in committee already. Thank you.
All right. Alderman from 22nd, you then.
I support sending it back to committee. Most people that know me since I've been down here, I keep saying process is everything, and I do feel like this is being rushed. If you ask me if I think the city should be part of St. Louis County, I would tell you yes, but I can't go out there and justify it to my constituents because there's been no process in place to justify that. I think the intent of this is good. I think we should have collaboration, but I also think that we should be mindful of the details of the collaboration. This Board Bill 34 doesn't really say a lot. It says, we basically give up all our rights to this cooperative partnership throughout here. You never have to come back to the Board of Aldermen. It has some nice fuzzy whereases, and the meat and potatoes of it is really the intergovernmental agreement, which has been said, it's been said before. Then there's a management agreement. Well, when I go through this intergovernmental cooperation agreement, I have some questions. I have questions about some of the whereases. The business community says it's for this. That's great. Talked to the sponsor earlier. He said he could get some letters from them. That would be great. I wish they would have come and testified at the hearing to tell us how great this is. It feels good, but just because it feels good doesn't mean it's the right thing to do right now. I also looked at St. Louis County's ordinance. It's fairly short, but they have some nice whereases. I just want to read one of them. And it says, whereas with the support of the mayor and the county executive, a more comprehensive proposal for the effective integration of city and county business development, business finance, and entrepreneurial support services staff, functions and activities has been developed and coordinated between staff of SL with St. Louis County Economic Council and the St. Louis Development Corporation, called the Partnership Initiative. Then it talks about how St. Louis County Economic Council appointed a partnership committee. Then it talks about how, whereas the partnership committee has met and engaged in a systematic review and analysis of the partnership initiative. Again, the initiative is SLDC and St. Louis County Economic Council. And they drafted the cooperation agreement and has concluded that the combination of existing St. Louis County Economic Council and St. Louis Development Corporation Business Development, blah, 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 is a really great idea. So it sounds like there was a presentation done before the St. Louis Economic Council. And it sounds like they were excited about the information they were given, and they did this systematic review and analysis. I would suggest that we should do the same. I would like to see what steps both entities went through to come up with the conclusion that it's in the best interest. Now, it sounds good. I don't dispute that, and it probably should be done. But yet, process is everything, and I'm not convinced that we've done our due diligence. In the cooperation agreement, I'm curious as to why the city must put at least $1 million, at least, but up to 1.3. And let's not get stuck on just $1 million, because it clearly says up to 1.3. St. Louis County, based on the information that I did receive, which I appreciate, is putting in about 15 million. But it says their obligation to the county, subject to its annual appropriations process, county will continue to support the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, which is this new created entity, on the same financial basis as it currently funds the St. Louis County Economic Council. Now, what that says to me is there's a standard appropriations process, and we know with dwindling resources, sometime we cannot afford to appropriate the same level of funding next year that we did this year. But yet the city is the only entity, part of this is mandatory, that it's $1 million. Also, the $1 million, from my understanding, is coming from the Gaming Commission, right? Well, at the end of the day, I understand that St. Louis Development Corporation is a separate entity from the city of St. Louis for the most part. But at the end of the day, we are all family. And the money that's generated at St. Louis Development Corporation is still our taxpayers' money. I look at the budget through Ways and Means, and we talk about LRA. And I ask the question, about $250,000 plus that LRA is allocating to forestry, is it happening? And they said, well, it is happening, but not the way you thought it was, because I thought the extra money was going to be totally extra, added to the budget of forestry so they can cut our grass and vacant lots and so on and so forth. But no, it was put in the budget, another $250 taken out somewhere else to continue to balance the budget throughout the year. That was not my intent. So we can always have the best intentions, but does it pan out to be our reality? Does it positively impact our quality of life? I have quite a few questions, but I'm not going to belabor it here because I would rather have another committee hearing and have different people, especially from the business community, come and talk to us about why this is a good idea. I would even appreciate somebody from St. Louis County Council coming and telling us why it's a great idea. How about Dennis Coleman, the one that's going to be the CEO of this new entity? I'd like to hear why he thinks it's a great idea. And then maybe I can be convinced that this is emphatically in the best interest of the city of St. Louis. I think on its face, again, I think it's a good thing to do. But how we do it and how we get there is very important to me. So I would support going back to committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Knowing and understanding is a wonderful thing. I propose that is what is being suggested by the need to send this back to committee. But I also look at the previous 3 years that this has been on the drawing board. I didn't see anybody at any of the meetings that were available to us to ask questions or anything. I've not heard anybody even discuss this, even after you heard it on the news, as it was coming to this point of having an operating agreement. I hear questions about things that have nothing to do with us as a legislator. We never look at management contracts. We have no need to preview management contracts. That is the role and the responsibility that we give to the comptroller and that branch of government. As we also are talking about other things that have nothing to do with our positions as legislators, it is amazing to me today. As we move forward and how we improve the process for our citizenry to have a better quality of life, to have more jobs available to them, to have more businesses and homes built, and a number of other things that are required for a city that lost almost 30,000 residents through the last census. What you talking about today has nothing to do with making sure that that takes place for a better future. Just let me give you a little preview of if we are really that concerned, and if we are doing our jobs with all the concern that has been presented today. Here's a preview. I've already said to you that this has been in the process and planning and conversation for 3 years. Our president knows that. I also say to you that the sustainability plan that is being presented by the executive branch of government has been in a planning process for 18 months in its official public process, and there were meetings held all over the city of St. Louis, in every church and every school and everything. I've only seen one alderman at those meetings, and I purposely went all over the city to different meetings, just so I could interact with my colleagues about what they thought about the sustainability plan. On April 26th, this bill was put in our mailbox. How many people picked up the phone and called anybody to ask a question? I did. And that was before I got the summary. You know, you got a summary too, and all the things that you're asking about. This summary was sent to you on April 30th. How many people picked up the phone, walked up to an individual, asked a question? I did. Rodney Cram got a call from me because I wanted to know if he was all right with it. That affected him and how he does business on our behalf. Now remember, you don't have any control over SLDC. That's another thing we need to talk about too in process of procedure and concern. They raise their own money. They only get about 20% of their funds from us, so don't get too carried away on all that either. But I called him and asked him. I already knew enough because I had done my job, done my homework, had my understanding, and knew how it could benefit me and my constituency. But I had to hear that from the man who has been in every meeting. I had to hear it from him. I know Denny Coleman. I helped hire Denny Coleman when he was running D-Cells. That's how far back I go with him. So I know he's competent. But I want to know how it affected how we do business on behalf of the city, and if it was going to be okay for us, would it bring us substantial additional resources and understanding and ways to do business better? So I got all my questions answered. But I'm willing, like we did, have an additional committee meeting, because I understand people need to know things. I don't have a problem with that. But when you've had this much information this long, and now you're upset and excited today about a question being answered, when you really don't have that much power over it anyway, and you already have a comptroller in the city council's office that handles management contracts, this is just an operating agreement that they can sit down and talk to each other and do business on our behalf. That's all that is. So you know, I'm gonna sit down, I'm not saying anything else, I'm not trying to influence anybody to do anything one way or the other. But I just want to put some facts on the table so that the general public had more understanding of how this evolved. It didn't just show up a couple of weeks ago at a committee meeting. Thank you.
Alderman from the 4th.
Mr. President, I rise in support of sending this back to committee. This suit I have on today is called a Board Bill 34 suit. It has more wrinkles in it than this board bill. And it would take to go back to the cleaners. It needs to go to the cleaners and get pressed. If I had a steam iron, it wouldn't do the job. And this is what we're doing now, steam ironing this board bill. This needs to go back to committee, because when I requested all the information that everyone else has received, I was not in committee hearing the last time, and I'm just not receiving this information about this board bill. And it's just like with the redistricting. I inherited the 3rd Ward, the 5th Ward, part of the 18th Ward, and part of the 21st Ward. I have a list of housing, of home repair housing. 842 home repair people are on the list. Now, I've inherited an additional over 500 people. Most of them want to be on the home repair list too, but they got to get in numerical order in order for them to get some help. I think we need to send it back, get the wrinkles out of it, and get it straight, and then bring it back. What are we afraid of? Because if we make a decision now, this is a big city. We're making a permanent decision on something that I feel like it's the merger, beginning of the merger between the city and the county. And this is St. Louis City. We created the county, so thank you. Send it back.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 11th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't aware that polyester wrinkled.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 1st?
No, I was going to close on my motion.
All right.
There was no further.
Any further discussion? Alderman from the 1st, you recognize the close on the amendment, or actually the motion to send Board Bill number 34 back to committee.
Mr. President, members of the board, so I listened to my esteemed colleague, which I'll call him Alderman Schmidt, because that 20 does not come off my lips real good. I understand. So he and I had a discussion, and he showed me on page, what is this? Page 1 of the actual agreement of where it says the city. Unfortunately, maybe if I hadn't gone to law school, and the lawyers that I've talked to in this room, city does not define the Board of Aldermen. Who is the city, okay? That doesn't mean it comes back to the Board of Aldermen. Is the city the Board of E&A in this instance? Who is the city? So when my esteemed colleague from the 13th says that it comes back for us to renew it every 10 years, that's not necessarily true. And if we pass this out without getting that straight, then it's too late at that point. You know, what people thought is not actually okay, it's what the document says. So to me, we need a definition of what the city is at the very least. I heard one of my colleagues talk about that, that we could have Slate working with the businesses. There's nothing that prevents Slate from working with the businesses right now. I don't understand what that had to do with anything. It's nothing to prevent Slate from working with the businesses in the counties or the city right now. There's nothing calling up the people who run Slate and say, we want to do something with you. We want to help these young people get jobs. There's nothing that Slate has to just give jobs in the city or work with them. So there's no prevention from that right now. Were you finished? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Okay. I don't understand that need for legislation to be coordinated. If it is, that's what we need to do. I don't understand why we didn't send at least a portion of this to Mr. Alderman from the 26th, who is Intergovernmental Affairs. I'd like somebody made the announcement about maybe we should have had the county council come, because maybe that's what we need to do. We need to sit down with the county council and the Board of Aldermen and talk about how we can work together if that's something we want to do, and that's what we have an Intergovernmental Affairs Committee for. But my most problem that I have is that I heard the Alderwoman from the 19th talk about that people could have reached out way before that, and maybe that's true. And sometimes you're so busy doing other things that you don't get to have legislation come this much before you until it actually is on the floor of the Board of Aldermen, or sometimes it's in committee. I'm not so much worried about how it affects Mr. Krim or even Denny, who's I've known for a very long time. I'm more concerned about how it affects this Board of Aldermen and how it affects this city and how it affects the people that live in my community. Somebody talked about this being a small town. It is a small town. It continuously gets smaller and smaller. We do a lot of things that we have no business doing, and we have not been here for 10 years, but the 12 years that I spent before this, again, countless times we pass something and then we have to redo it, or then it gets passed and then people say, oh, shame on me, I thought it said something and it didn't say it. I use the whole thing of the Rams, because that just is seared in my mind, because I asked all kind of questions. Vervis Jones was the comptroller then. He came, I was a new alderperson. He said, Sharon, wow, you're asking all these questions. And now here we are dealing with this again. This is not something that, send it back to committee, get these questions answered, then bring it back out here, vote yes or no. okay? But make sure that your legislation is as responsible as it should be, and that it defines all things, and that people are comfortable with it. I heard Alderman Boyd from the 22nd say that he was for the merger of the city and the county, and I'm not. But if it's a good agreement, then maybe I could support it. But I don't think this is a good legal agreement, and I think it needs work, and I think it can be worked on. And I think we need to define who the parties in this actual contract, because in my contracts law, and I think the clerk will tell you this, there's something about definition of who parties are and about consideration, and if you're all agreeing on the same thing, because what I just heard the sponsors say is the parties are the Board of Aldermen. If we now pass this and that's not the parties, have we really gone into a contract? My other question is, I heard someone say that the county held no reason not to send this back. If the county has already held it up, then they obviously have some concerns. So why don't we just take a moment to have a little bit more reasonableness? And I would like to renew my motion. I can't talk in these braces. I'm going to get them out in about a month. I've had them for 4 years.
You're doing well with them.
But I'd like for us to take a moment to pause, and I'd like to renew my motion to send this board bill back to committee for reconsideration and further discussion.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 3rd, that we send Board Bill number 34 back to committee for further discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia.
To be involved in that, even though it may impact our financial situation.
Why would it impact our financial situation?
Because St. Louis Development Corporation works on behalf of the city of St. Louis. Their money is our money, right?
No,
we're committing $1 million
no, it's
a
not
year.
Right. Actually, it's not right. The SODC is a quasi-public entity. It's really a private, semi-private corporation. They've got their own board of directors. There's no general revenue that goes into the SLDC. There is some block grant money, but primarily their revenue comes from fees generated through the services they provide.
So why do we even need to do a board bill?
I'm sorry.
Why do we need to do a board bill? They're autonomous, is what I'm hearing you saying. They have their own money, and they basically do whatever they want to do. So why do we need to have a board bill? Why don't they just go do it?
Well, first of all, they just don't, they just don't do what they want to do. I'm on that board. Alderman Kennedy's on that board. We're on that board because of our chairmanships of our individual committees. The mayor appoints the individuals to he appoints the individuals to, the various alphabet agencies, and the chairman of those agencies are all on the board of SLDC. So, I think it's pretty obvious. To say that they just do what they want to do, I mean, that's ridiculous. And if you got something pertinent to this board bill, I'll be glad to answer a question. But otherwise, I'm just going to sit down.
Alderman from the 13th, please restrain your comments.
Do you have any other questions or serious questions?
Actually, I could stand up here and talk for the next 5 hours. Is that what you would like me to do? I'm trying to have some humility and civility in the debate. And I feel like this board bill is being rammed down our throats without a lot of attention to detail. And that's okay. That's okay because you have the votes to pass it. But I don't think being disrespectful to your colleagues is part of good process and good of public debate and good policy. You can sit down if you want to, Mr. Chairman of HUD's, Alderman from the 13th Ward. I appreciate your time.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderman from the 13th, you're recognized to close.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, we have had 2 committee meetings on this. We had one this past Wednesday, another one 2 Wednesdays in a row. The bill was, proposal was approved by the SLDC Board of Directors about a month ago. This bill, what I plan to do is, if it's perfected today, to hold it until June 7th, and that will give the county time to meet again and perfect their bill. They have a lot quicker schedule as far as implementing bills than we do. Here, the mayor can't sign a bill until 10 days after it's passed, and then it can't go into effect for another 20 days. So we're talking about, we're already into into July, which is okay. But the county council will pass something, and their executive will sign it probably prior to the middle of July or the latter part of it. I have not personally been in contact with the county, anybody on the county council, but others have, and I'm assured that all of any reservations that they had were worked out, and that the bill will be perfected on June 4th. There's a lot of reasons, I think, to pass this, but let me give you just one more example of a benefit to us and the county as well. There are individuals on the county economic council, on their staff, that specialize in small business administration loans and other similar type loans. They do a ton of these, a ton of them. We do very few. We'll take advantage of the expertise like that they provide. On the other hand, we've done an excellent job in the city. The Development Corporation, I should say, has done an excellent job of getting federal new market tax credits. We've had, I don't know the exact total, but I know it's over $100 million in new market tax credits that have been generated through SLDC's applications since that program went into effect. The county, on the other hand, has had not a lot of luck there. And there are some reasons for that. But one of the benefits to the county will be the expertise that SLDC's new market tax credits guy will be able to provide them. So, I think, again, there's a synergy in moving these 2 entities together. It's time to do it, and I'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Been moved by Alderman from the 13th, seconded by Alderman from the 15th, that we perfect Board Bill number 34. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. I didn't hear you. Did he say? Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmid. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd? Alderman Vaccaro? Alderman Ogilvy? Alderman Cone? Alderman Williamson? Alderman Carter? Alderwoman Cruzen? President Reed?
No.
Alderwoman Flowers? Alderman Moore? Alderman Arnowitz? Alderman Rhodey? Alderman Kennedy? Alderman Ogilvy? Alderwoman Cruzen? "18 aye votes, 8 no votes."
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderman from 13th and perfected Board Bill number 34.
That's the extent of board bills for perfection.
Madam Clerk, could you please move Board Bill number 12 from the third reading consent calendar to the regular third reading calendar?
So noted.
Third reading consent.
Board bills 4, 11, 37, 38, 6, 7, 9, 58, and 59.
Alderman from 13th, you recognize on the motion for the third reading consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for third reading and final passage of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from 13th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus. Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway. Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy. Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmidt. Alderman French. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderwoman Cruzen. 26 aye votes, no votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from 13th and third read and finally passed the aforementioned bills.
That's the extent of third reading consent.
Third reading report of engrossments.
Board Bill number 12, sponsored by Alderman Conway, and an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller to enter into and execute the Lambert Airport Local Concept Food Beverage Concession Agreement between the City and OHM Concession Group, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 8th, you recognize on third reading and final passage of Board Bill number 12.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. I would move for third reading and final passage of Board Bill number 12.
Moved by the Alderman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd. Alderman from the 8th, please proceed.
No discussion.
It's been moved and seconded that we third reading and final pass Board Bill number 12. Alderman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, I am on transportation and actually voted for this board bill to come out of a committee, but I did that with concerns because when I met the people who were part of this agreement, one of the pieces of papers that we got that they gave us to was about who the person was, and they had 100% minority participation. And I questioned that and asked for them to give me more background about how they are counting who's a minority. And because, again, it's a very legal thing that the whole time I was here before, they never addressed. We just made up these numbers, 15 and 20 or whatever, but there's a specific legal way that we're supposed to do this. And I haven't found anything so far that was sent to me to say that we've legally decided that we're going to do it the correct way. So, I'm voting no, not against the person. I'm voting no because I don't like how they're counting minorities. If I just come from wherever, Timbuktu, and I never have a history of being discriminated in the city of St. Louis, I have no business being counted as a minority as it goes to legally addressing the wrongs that were done to people. And so for me, to see this, I'm going to vote no each and every time until we address this properly, which is that we were supposed to do a study, and we're supposed to be able to show some kind of nexus. In years to come, it might be that white men become the minority. But I don't want to see them as being the people who are addressed by this legislation, okay? So that's why I'm voting no against this, not against the person. I met the man. He's a nice man. I'm sure he'll do a nice business. But I think that they really need to take a look at how they are legally addressing who and what is a minority, especially as it goes to trying to remedy past wrongs. For that reason, I will be voting no.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Alderwoman. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved by the Alderman from the 8th, seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
No.
Alderwoman Flowers. Alderman Bosley. Alderman Moore. Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Ingracia. Alderwoman Young. Alderman Conway.
Aye.
Alderman Ortman. Alderman Vollmer. Alderman Villa. Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Wessels. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Florida. Alderwoman Behringer. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Kennedy.
We're going to go to Milo's.
Alderwoman Davis. Alderman Schmidt. Alderman French. I didn't hear you. Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderman Cone. Alderman Williamson. Alderman Carter. Alderwoman Cruzen. President Reed.
Aye.
Alderman Arnowitz. Alderman Rhodey. Alderman Ogilvy. Alderwoman Cruzen. 24 aye votes, 1 no vote.
By a vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 8th and 3rd read and finally passed. Board Bill number 12.
That's the extent of third reading, engrossment, and final passage.
Report of enrollment.
Board Bills 4, 11, 12, 37, 38, 6, 7, 9, 58, and 59.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix his signature hereto to the end that these may become law. Dispense with line item 12, second reading.
Board Resolution 30, sponsored by Alderman Rhodey, Enterprise Zone for Manchester Investors LLC.
Alderman from the 7th? Alderman
Yes.
from the 17th?
Yeah, Mr. President, I was wondering if we could put that on the informal calendar, or I'm asking, I guess, I'm not wondering. I'm asking, could we put that on the informal calendar?
All right, Madam Clerk, please sign resolution number 30 to the resolution informal calendar.
So noted. That's the end of second reading of resolutions.
Miscellaneous unfinished business?
We have none.
Announcements.
Presentation today by Bike St. Louis immediately following the board meeting. Monday, the office is closed, Memorial Day. Tuesday, Ways and Means Committee meeting, 9 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Wednesday, Ways and Means Committee meeting, 9 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Also on Thursday, Ways and Means Committee meeting, 9 a.m. in the Kennedy Room. Friday, full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the chambers. That's the extent of my announcements.
Alderman from the 9th.
President, the American Legion Post 422 at 2601 South 11th Street, which is catty corner from Gene Slay's Boys Club, on Monday the 27th is having their annual Memorial Day barbecue. Starts at 11. To be offered is their world famous ribs, pork steaks, hamburgers. So come and enjoy. Let the Post do the cooking for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. On Wednesday, May 25th, the Engrossment Rules, Resolution, and Credentials Committee will meet at 9 a.m.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 20th.
Mr. President, members of the board, thank you very much. There will be a fundraiser for Roosevelt High School football breakfast. They're going to do this with barbecuing on Sunday, May the 26th from 1 to 7. It will be at Riley's Irish Pub at the corner of Arsenal and Arkansas. It's a very good cause. There'll be grilled brats and hot dogs and sides, and they'll also do some other things there where you can support our young people from Roosevelt that are getting these football breakfasts. Secondly, I want to congratulate STL TV. I know that the chair of Ways and Means have been having them stream online the meetings of Ways and Means. When the Russians were here, Mr. President, who are intellectuals and they're government people and business people and in media, they come here every year, as you well know, Mr. President, and they asked, how do people find out about things in the city in terms of what it is that you're doing? And one of those ways, of course, is through STL TV, so I wanted to offer them kudos today.
All right, excellent. Alderman from the 26th.
All right, Mr. President, watch yourself.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to remind my constituents that we're having our monthly ward meeting. It'll be this next Thursday at 1141 Belt and Union Memorial Church. That'll be the May the 30th, Thursday, 6:30 for the 26th Ward monthly meeting. Thank you.
All right, Alderman, you would be one tall, big woman. I wouldn't want to run into you. All right. Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that the Compton Hill Water Tower will be open tomorrow night from 5:30 to 11 p.m. They do a full moon opening every month, so you can take a tour of the tower itself. They'll also have food trucks and a live band. It's a lot of fun, so hope to see you there.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 9th.
Sorry, Mr. President. This afternoon at 2 o'clock, just a reminder, we're having our neighborhood development meeting, and we've got over 30 bills, so if you're on the committee, definitely make that, and we'll try to do good government and try to get through it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I wanted to ask you to take a moment in the Rotunda City Hall next week to view some of the photographic artwork of the Katie Ann Foundation students who are primarily, most of them are from the Innovative Academy at Judge Jimmy Edwards School, but many of them are from our communities right here in North St. Louis. These young people have expressed themselves in art in a very different way, and I'd like for us to encourage them, and hopefully we can expand this program. Also, the circus floor starts May 31st, is opening day, and we're always happy to see that tent come up. We know it's summer. Also, I wanted to thank everybody in the St. Louis Community Empowerment Foundation and all those who volunteered for the successful event that we had last Thursday, and saluting women from not just the city of St. Louis, but internationally. It was a program that is worth talking about for a while, and most especially in honoring Chaka Khan. So again, thank you to them and all that they do.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further comments? Madam Clerk, you had something additional?
Yes, I want to reiterate that today, immediately following the board meeting, lunch will be provided to the aldermen by Bike St. Louis, and there will be a presentation immediately following the board meeting. Thank you.
All right. Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move to excuse the alderman from the 12th, he has pink eye, the 24th and the 28th due to necessary absence.
Been moved by the alderman from 13th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the alderman from 11th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And one no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adjourn the meeting until Friday, 10 a.m., May 31st.
Moved by the alderman from 13th. Entertain a second on that motion. Seconded by the alderman from 11th. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Stand adjourned.